Good evening, everyone. Um, it is February 10th, 2026, and the time is now 6:06 p.m. So I'm going to call this meeting of the Urban Design Commission to order. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this meeting of the Urban Design Commission is conducted via remote participation. We will make recordings available upon request as soon as possible after this meeting. My name is Sarah Lewis, and I am the co-chair for tonight's meeting. We'll start a roll call vote of the commission members present. Frank Valdez. Deborah Fennick.
Present.
Tim Talon.
Present.
Andrew Abaugh.
Present.
And Martin Pavlinek.
Present.
All right, with more than 3 members present, we have a quorum. So I'm going to take the liberty of chair right now, and as one of our guests has to conflict with another evening meeting, I'm going to rearrange the agenda this evening, and we're going to actually start with the OSC, the Office of Sustainability and Environment intro presentation. So with that, I'm going to introduce everybody to Josh Eckhart Lee and Elise Balazs from OSE, and you guys can take it away.
Thank you, Sarah. Just checking, do you need us to say through the chair for this meeting?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Great. We have a quick slideshow, but briefly, I'm Josh Eckhart Lee. I'm the sustainability planner in the Office of Sustainability and Environment. I use he, him pronouns. Mostly in my job with the city, I do our development review and sort of implementing our green building policies and working to sort of mitigate emissions through our building stock and through our transportation emissions by electrifying cars and mitigating our need for cars in the first place. Thank you for having us tonight.
Hi, all. Thank you for having us, and thank you for swapping us earlier. I have to get to a Climate Action Committee meeting after this. I'm Elise Balazs. I am the Sustainability and Resiliency Planner in the Office of Sustainability and Environment, and I work with Josh very closely. My role is primarily around flood mitigation and heat mitigation and building social resilience, so helping to foster a greater sense of community in Somerville. And so we're really excited to get this intro to you all.
All right, and if I may add something while you guys are pulling up your presentation, just so that the commission is aware, we do have a new director of the Office and of Sustainability and Environment. And some of you may know Stephen Nutter. He's been active in the city for a long time, and now he's actually on the city team. So we're pretty excited about that. So.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, so Josh and I are excited to be working with Stephen, and this is sort of what we plan on going through with you tonight. We were thinking that this would be a bit of an intro to what we do and how it might relate to some of the work you're all doing here. And so we'll start with just a little bit about us and OSE. We'll go a little bit through Climate Forward and then get into some of the zoning work and the update process that we're working through with folks at Planning, Preservation, and Zoning. So the Office of Sustainability and Environment, sort of what do we do? What's our mission? Our main goal in OSE is to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions in Somerville, or help foster that reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, and improve environmental performance of the city government, the community, city buildings, all kinds of things like that. So we've got a pretty robust staff in our office who goes through all kinds of work on policy, on city buildings, like what Josh does, green buildings, what I do, resiliency, and we've got a community engagement specialist as well. And so we try to do all this work through mitigation, adaptation, and also equity work. So taking a lens at looking at all of our environmental justice communities as well as the community as a whole. Josh, is there anything I missed, do you think?
It is a robust workload that we do, so I'm sure there's something you missed, Elise, but that covers I think the basics. And just to say that like this is one prong through which we're trying to do our best to meet our sort of climate and equity goals.
Yeah. And so Climate Forward, if you haven't heard of it, is our updated climate action plan that we re-released in 2024, I believe. There are 77 actions across 5 different topic areas to help achieve the community's vision of a carbon net negative and resilient future. And so part of that has to do with zoning and green buildings and urban design and all the things that you all sort of help the city do.
And it didn't start in 2024 with that update. Back in 2019, when folks like Sarah were developing the Somerville zoning ordinance, we set really, really robust climate sort of regulations baked into into the work. 25,000 square foot and up buildings needed to meet LEED Gold, which is, as I'm sure all you all know, is a sort of green building standard. Buildings 50,000 square feet and above needed to meet LEED Platinum. We were really at the cutting edge of mandating and enforcing sustainability goals through our zoning. We had to sort of take a bit of a step back in 2021. The Attorney General at the time, now Governor Healy, sort of delineated a lot of that responsibility into the building code and the building energy regulations. Things like materiality were relegated to the state's authority there. And so that's why we advocated when they were updating the energy code to make sure that it was as robust as possible, and that we then in 2023 became one of the first adopters of the specialized energy code, which is the sort of most stringent level of energy efficiency that we can mandate here through the building code. As part of that, we were working with Sarah and the PPZ team on updating the sort of language in our zoning ordinance to bring us in alignment with that code and remove some of those bits of language that were preempted by the state. So we held a number of public hearings and did an update process through which our density bonus program, which is in all the sort of different sections of our zoning code, a lower density factor, a lower number, higher density. If you meet our net zero regulations, we updated that to require LEED Platinum and building code net zero definitions to achieve that. And as part of that, we sort of worked through this green buildings section of the zoning ordinance and had to effectively delete it all and leave it reserved for future updates, which is kind of what we're working on now. We've started a long sort of 18-month process of research and community input to try and figure out how to best and also enforceably update this to make sure we continue to be on the cutting edge of these sort of climate resiliency efforts using one of the tools in the toolbox, which is zoning.
Yeah, and so part of this process, like Josh was talking about with some of the preemption, we were looking at how, if we had to remove LEED from our sustainability section, how we might be able to fill any gaps with items from LEED that the building code didn't sort of cover. And so we worked with the MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, to do a gap analysis with also an intern from Tufts. And they went through sort of all of our our zoning codes, our ordinances, any sort of engineering site permit regulations, and look for places where we could inject a bit more holistically some sustainability and resiliency language. And so, like it says on the slide, the language was updated or provided recommendations for updates to avoid state preemption, as well as substantive updates to increase our ability to meet our sustainability goals.
In addition to that, we looked at working to become a fossil fuel-free community. As many of you may know, there is a pilot program at the state level that allowed 10 communities across the Commonwealth to be fossil fuel-free in their new construction. Somerville did not end up being selected by that, but as part of that process, we did create a really robust fossil fuel-free construction ordinance. And so we worked with an economics and planning team from VHB and AutoCase to sort of figure out ways to encourage that ordinance even outside of our ability to enforce it. And they looked at three sort of big pathways through certain permit streamlining efforts, expansion of certain allowable use classifications for different building energy infrastructure, just to give us definitional language in our ordinances, as well as potential flexibility and form standards on top of the existing 5% flexibility that we have in the zoning ordinance now for projects meeting those fossil fuel-free criteria. As part of that study, we also looked at ways to incentivize sort of oversizing electrical capacity in new development, making sure that a transformer that has to go in can be big enough to serve the next building so they don't have to have their own transformer, and you don't get into a problem that we know has been somewhat evergreen here at the UDC, which is this case of transformers clogging up the public right of way. Something that we hear a lot from folks looking to be good neighbors, looking to be climate stewards of our city, is they want to electrify their home, especially if they hear that a neighbor or two of their neighbors have added an electric stove or added heat pumps. And what happens to them is they're maybe the third or the fourth or the fifth on their block who decide to do this upgrade to their home, and they end up hitting the sort of threshold through which Eversource needs to upgrade the service to their block. And all of the cost gets put onto them to upgrade the service for the whole neighborhood. And that adds a pretty untenable up to like $40,000 price tag to some of these improvements for people's homes. And that's a major roadblock. We are not just using zoning, but we're figuring out every way we can to try and make sure that that problem doesn't happen to residents, to neighbors, because it's inequitable, it's really frustrating, and it's just not sustainable as we work to really electrify the city. So part of our work was figuring out some of the economic models that help encourage that oversizing. That work wrapped up at the start of this calendar year, just end of January. So we are just now compiling all the recommendations from that most recent report from the lead analysis, and are building it sort of into alignment with the priorities from our coworkers in PBZ as well as in public space and urban forestry, so that we're not duplicating work, because all of these sustainability recommendations are also urban forestry recommendations. They're also, permitting work that ISD is related to. It's our engineering permits. So we're trying to do some alignment work now before we dive into a sort of spring 2026 broader public engagement campaign. But that being said, this is our sort of first pass at doing some of that with folks who are engaged in the development review process. I know Elise told me earlier, a couple of weeks ago, that she'd been approached by some UDC members saying, we have these thoughts about sustainability in our review, and we don't have a whole lot of jurisdiction on that. And so we want to make sure that we're capturing some of that energy from you all as people who are engaged volunteers in the city, so that when we are soliciting more substantive feedback in our update, we know that there are folks who are engaged in the process, who know our regulations, and have a sort of place that you can direct that energy as we do our update work. Our hope is that that process will happen in earnest through the summer, and end of this year, we'll have some sort of package of recommendations and updates that are both sort of technical language updates to make the process easier, as well as more substantive to keep us, being the climate leaders we have been for many years. And if you don't want to just engage with us in our sort of formal engagement that we go forward doing, you can always email us at ose@somervillema.gov. Lisa and I have certainly a few more minutes. We don't want to take up too much of your time, but if there's any initial questions or preliminary comments, we'd love to open the floor to that. Chair Lewis.
Absolutely. We are very casual, so I'm sure this group does have questions.
Hey, just thank you for doing this. Like it's all the stuff that you sort of referenced that like you probably already know. I didn't know any of that. So it's just great to have kind of somebody walking us through this stuff because I'm not following it to the level that I think sometimes you guys think we are. So I guess one question I have is some of the initial stuff you were talking really about specifically about city buildings. So these zoning regulations will affect not only city buildings, but the non-city buildings that we would be reviewing on a regular.
There's a little bit of a difference there because technically the answer is the city doesn't have to follow zoning regulations. However, we usually do. Sort of obviously we want to walk the walk instead of just talking the talk. So it will, what's being examined is sort of how to incorporate more sustainability without sort of getting awry of the legal requirements of the building code. And so that'd be throughout. It would be all buildings where we can. Did I say that right, Josh?
100%. Yeah. And I was even ready to make a quip about how we actually don't have to follow zoning. The intent of all of our work is about citywide regulations that would affect the development review process for private developers. We have a whole energy manager here in our department that manages city buildings and tries to make them clean, but that's actually not a major focus of the work that we've been doing. This has all been sort of externally directed to general projects.
Deborah.
Yeah, so I also want to thank you so much for what you're doing. This is something I know this group really is committed to, and we're happy to see what is appearing, what is coming to us, Passive House and other. I guess they're meeting that stretch code and going the next step to do Passive House and things. And so I think, it's there's a high bar, and I think, a lot of the developers are meeting it and maybe incentivizing other developers to get close. But I just I'm curious about the city buildings. I thought there was a decarbonization program for the major buildings. How's that coming? I mean, and we don't have a lot of time, but just if you can summarize, is there anything special that you wanted to talk about with what the city is doing with its own buildings?
There's nothing super special. We are just this afternoon concluded a tour at the Cummings School that is happening, but we're doing the in-building energy assessments right now with our energy manager, Garrett Anderson. If you email us at that general email, he also monitors that, and he'll have a lot more robust answer for you all. But especially in this moment with transitioning at leadership with institutional asset management, I don't have a super clear answer as someone who works more on the sort of zoning and regulation of non-city buildings side of things. Sorry, Deborah.
Also, I think the transformer issue is one I think that I have no idea how we're going to progress very far in the future with that one. But yeah, I don't know, but I'm curious to see it proceeding.
That's
And again, and finding some solution Yeah.
Yeah, that's one that I have been somebody, it was me, and I think it's Dan now, but making sure that the directors of PPZ from an urban design perspective, OSE from the sustainability perspective, and engineering from a technical perspective have regular meetings to sort of to chew through how we're going to address that so we don't end up with more of the 379 Somerville Ave debacles. And yes, I said that.
Is that the
Um,
one? Is that the one?
yeah, it's the one that has half of the facade missing because they had to build an alcove for
Oh,
their
gotcha. Okay.
transformer.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, so that is still ongoing, and it's obviously a complex issue, but part of this concept of neighborhood transformers, I'm excited about, because I think, sort of like Josh said, from an equity standpoint, that will help us all as well.
So I have a comment and a question. First, I just want to echo the other commissioners and thanking both of you for your work. Really important work in this. I think one of the challenges, we have a very robust review process in the city. One of the challenges of it can be kind of the siloing of different expertises. And, really appreciate you coming here today. I think one of our hopes as a commission is to really integrate thinking about sustainability in the reviews that we're providing, which are early stage reviews in the projects. And I think we all know from our own professional work, really achieving meaningful sustainability results requires thinking about building orientation and facade design and really integrating thinking about sustainability early in the process. So one of my questions to you, maybe as you go through this process of thinking about if it's zoning revisions or other process revisions, is how can this commission be helpful in achieving these longer term sustainability goals? One of the things could be one of our initiatives is to rethink the design guidelines or to assess the design guidelines that we're using to evaluate projects. I could see perhaps if there was a design guideline that spoke to the importance of designing facades in consideration of solar orientation. The basic idea that a north-facing facade should be designed differently than a south-facing facade, and thinking about solar heat gain and things like that. That's an idea. Again, hope this is a conversation that can continue into the future. And my question is, I'm just curious if you, as part of your purview, and you talked about energy a lot, are you also focused on city regulations and as it relates to embodied carbon?
So that's something that we've talked about before. And I think, it does fall within our purview. And being that we are the Office of Sustainability and Environment, we can't exactly like write those codes and make those decisions, but we've talked about that with other PPZ staff before, embodied carbon and how that might work. And there have been historically some infrastructure and asset management, IAM staff that have had an interest in that as well. So it's something that definitely has come up before. And like what you were saying about this being a continued conversation, we're sort of here to let you know that we exist and about the work we do and see, sort of what your interests are. And there are things that don't fall under your purview and how we might be able to integrate them into our work. And, we're trying to reach out to as many folks as possible while we're doing this process to learn what is of interest to groups like you all who do this professionally and are spending your time helping us all.
We
So
don't
if there are any other
on that
topics,
one.
then we want to know.
We don't technically review the green score, but the green score comes through in a lot of our reviews. And just looking at it and looking at a lot of them, there are some dumb landscapes that are being proposed in order to check the boxes of the green score. And it would be great to kind of look at that and look at the original intent and what's being produced. Because there are ways to cheat that score to get the number up, to cross the threshold and end up with something that's going to die within 3 years of being planted anyway.
I will flag that. So we have an entire team right now we're calling it the 5-year look back on the zoning ordinance. And I know PSF has been interested in revisiting the green score. So I will
Yeah.
definitely pass that
it's
message along. Yeah.
it's better than not having it in the first place. It's just
Mhm.
it's not probably achieving the original intent to its best ability.
All right. Anybody else have any comments or questions before we let these lovely people go?
Just want to thank you all for letting us take some of your precious evening time. It really is a pleasure to talk about our work. We're really passionate about it, even if we're a small, little, sometimes sidelined office. So we really appreciate your time and hope to have an email from you all soon to talk about this more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks both. Have a great evening. Okay. Yeah, and as far as continued conversation, I think as we get into, we'll try to bring you updates from the sort of the look back work that we're doing, which of course will have public comment opportunities. So, sort of we as a commission have that opportunity to sort of make sure our voices are heard and weigh in on a lot of that. All right. Okay, moving on with the agenda. Lexi, I see that you want to make a note about voting.
Yeah, so when we're writing these decisions at the end, it can be difficult compiling all the information in a useful way when we vote for some things at one meeting and some things at the next. So from now on, if we're not going to vote on everything, we'll just wait until the next meeting and reference the notes. I can send you the videos right after the meeting, and then we can just vote for everything at one time, so it's easier for everybody.
Deborah, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question about that. We vote sometimes on sort of like the first step for, let's say, form, and then, they do all, and then that allows them to move on to sort of to more, sort of later phase items. So does it make sense to hold back the voting?
So Lewis and I and Dan are working on the organization of everything right now, looking into what would be the most efficient way and changing it. But the way that the decisions have to be written or the recommendations to the board, kind of it's a lot easier to organize when it is all at one time. So we write summaries over like what's happened at each meeting, but the votes go at the end. So you can make a decision, like y'all can decide and tell them that you prefer this one and this one, but the official vote will just have to be at the end. So you can make a decision, those preliminary notes, you can make those, and then we'll just have the official vote at the end. So it's easier and flows better on the recommendation. So it's easier for planning board or ZBA to understand.
Yeah, and I think to Lexi's point, yeah, the idea that we can still sort of say, hey, we prefer option 2, but sort of can you look at this, that, and the other thing? And so then that can still happen without necessarily being a particular vote.
And if you guys have any notes or comments about how things are organized, if you want to send them to Urban Design we can talk about them and look at them at our upcoming meetings about restructuring things and rewriting some of the requirements.
Yeah, just so that you guys know, one of the things that we're trying to get some parity across the boards and commissions that PPZ works with. So the idea that sort of somebody from the city might be on, sort of on the commission, but not necessarily chairing, just like the UDC and the planning board have their own officers. There is the way the UDC was set up from the beginning was sort of it was new because it was so different than the old design review commission. But at this point, you guys are well established. And so we just need to make sure that we can get you sort of the same structure for authority and, sort of standalone. So that's one of the things we're looking at as well as part of the project that Lexi referenced. So yeah, anything else that you want to think about as far as structure goes, please, email us.
Is there a timeline?
I'm not aware of one right now, to be honest with you, because we just had our first sit-down meeting the end of last week. So, but we can keep you updated as we pull this together. We're in a difficult position at the moment because with the changes in the administration, the IGA office has done some rearranging, and the city clerk's office is looking at all boards and commissions across the city. So we're trying to go ahead and make these changes, and hopefully for sort of for this commission. But I don't know what's going to happen with the larger citywide project. So what's
the mechanism to make the change? Like, does it just get voted on in council, or how does that work?
Yeah, it'll basically be a zoning amendment that we'll have to submit. So yes, lobby your counselors already.
And something like the voting change would be probably not have to be formalized in our rules of policy and procedure, but that's just kind of a change in how we would operate.
Yeah.
Which I think I'm fine with in general. My only concern would be kind of echoing Deborah's. I think a lot of times we try and provide applicants with guidance because we ask for a lot. Multiple facade options to narrow it down if an applicant is coming back. So we'll just have to be clear about that.
Yeah. One of the things actually that we did touch on in our initial conversation was if you have thoughts about, for example, some of the projects, like there's a lot of times where there's a requirement to submit 3 massing options. Obviously, it's very difficult in some of the smaller buildings to be able to do that on some of the constrained sites. So if there are things that are worth thinking about and revisiting in the submittal requirements, sort of please think about that too.
Yeah, I think the YMCA is a good one where we have in the past had to pretend like they're 2 buildings next to each other and see a full presentation twice. That's a little silly.
Yeah, no, that's understood, and we've actually heard similar from other boards as well, that even though it's one project, the fact that it, sort of how it appears is different. So
So is that a change going forward that applicants are going to be able to provide a single presentation for multiple buildings?
I at this point we're not sure, but I do think it makes sense. When there is something, and just as we've talked about before too, the idea that having a streetscape, having something that represents context from an urban design perspective, I think having the two buildings presented together in context, I think is an important, we're charged with the urban realm. So I personally think that is something that we should do.
Yep.
So we'll keep
This-
you updated as this goes along. And like I said, please, yeah, throw suggestions and ideas. If it all goes to the urban design email, we can keep it all in one place and make sure that we can filter through.
Okay. This kind of relates to our operating procedures. Do we have in-person meetings on the agenda for this evening?
We do.
Okay, great.
That is at the end. I'm gonna take up, it's okay with you to move, you guys to move on to, I'm gonna take up the design recommendations. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to look at those. So the first one is for 107 Highland Avenue. Are there any comments or concerns on that recommendation? All right, seeing none. We don't have to vote on these, right, Lexi?
Right.
So the design recommendation, the next one is 120 through 132 Middlesex Avenue. Are there any comments or concerns on that recommendation?
Just one clarification. One of the commission recommendations notes the use of curved glass at the second floor. It may be worth just clarifying that that was as shown in the rendering that was presented. I think the commission wasn't asking for curved glass everywhere across the entire second floor.
All right.
Nothing
So-
related to this, but I did have a question. Are applicants required to, so is an applicant required to wait for us to approve these notes before they can move on to their second community meeting, or can they, after they get through us before we review this, can they move on?
Currently they have to wait until the recommendation is complete, which is why we as planners try to do the recommendations as promptly after the vote as we can to get them to you. The neighborhood meetings are something that we are looking at as an efficiency and potentially removing the 14 days requirement to the timeline so that the process can keep moving forward in a more timely manner. So I know there's another team that's sort of looking at that within PPZ. So hopefully we'll get a lot more efficient.
Just a quick, super small clerical thing on the 120 is that the voting membership stuff at the end is outdated.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still got cherry wine on it and whatnot. So
Okay. All
all
right,
that's
that's
listening.
somebody using the wrong template. So okay.
One other clerical item, my name is misspelled.
Yeah, at the very last paragraph.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. All right. And so the next item on our agenda
Sarah,
is
it looks like Eric Johnson has his hand raised. I don't know if he's with the 120 Middlesex project.
we don't generally take public comment in the UDC meeting. But I am curious, Eric, can we help you?
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Just real quick, I was getting on the train when you mentioned 107 Summer or Highland Avenue. Was there some item regarding the Somerville YMCA design that was going to be considered tonight?
Yes, the community center part of the project is about to be presented.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure. Um, all right, so will the team representing 101 Highland Avenue please raise their hands? All right, do we have the team, Lexi?
Yep. Sorry, my Zoom is being so slow.
No, thank you, Lexi.
Okay, wait, here we think
We're
I've
gonna
one.
need Vladimir Benoit, Lewis Kraft, and Chris Fee. And I don't know if others are here.
I think that's everybody with their hands raised.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you. Adam Dash, 48 Grove Street, representing the Somerville YMCA. If Vladimir's here, Vladimir Benoit, President and CEO of the Somerville Y, Lewis Kraft of Stantec, the project architects, and Chris Fee, the landscape architect at Stantec as well. Lewis is going to be sharing his slides. Oh, Dave Kadish is here too from Stantec. If you could give Lewis the ability to share his screen, and let me just give you just a brief reminder of where we are in the process. That we were before you on November 25th, 2025, as well as January 13th, 2026, regarding two applications, one for the 101 Highland Avenue Community Center YMCA building, and the other for 107 Highland Avenue being the Affordable Housing Building. On January 13th, the Commission unanimously approved the design and massing for the Affordable Housing Building at 107 Highland, which you just talked about, and asked us to come back one last time tonight to show you one revised facade option for the YMCA building at 101 Highland Avenue. And just as a reminder, the 101 Highland Avenue is only for design review, not for massing. Lewis, I want to show you that one revised facade option, and we'll see where we are. Thank you. Lewis?
Thank you. I will still need to have screen share enabled. Not there yet.
It should be working now.
Much better. Thank you all. Co-Chair Lewis, good to see you. Commissioners, you're all back. That's lovely to see. We're going to jump right in, as you all are quite familiar with where we are in the process, as Adam has outlined. As we know from our last commission hearing, the residential building was approved. There was a discussion on various community center design updates, and then the requests for additional studies really centered on studying the size and layout of the community center, the middle volume, the main Highland facade, windows, especially with requests to address the responsiveness of the windows to the interior program. So to do that, to get started, we're going to take you on just a very quick, high-level trip through the community center plans, just so that everybody can situate themselves, because we're talking about, in some instances, a little bit of nuance around the window layouts. Understanding the program, we think would be very helpful. So starting on Highland Avenue here, if you can see my hand in the red dot, we're coming in off of Highland into a double height lobby that is directly next to the Double Height Aquatic Center. You have the ability to head right into security and to your vertical circulation, or matriculate through the locker rooms into the aquatic center itself. Up on the second level, you see the double height of the aquatics and the main lobby that stretches all the way across Highland Avenue, with childcare as an additional program and offices on the second story. Moving up to the third story, this is where you will enter the double height basketball court feature, as well as childcare. Right now, the childcare, as well as a lot of the other program, is block programmed. Obviously, there will be spaces of different size, individual classrooms, group rooms, things like that, that will be further developed for these program areas. At the fourth level, so you move up there, it will be an open floor fitness component that will also have some individual studio spaces and an indoor running track that we have just gotten to work around the basketball court. So that's at the second level of the double height basketball space. So we move up to the fifth floor. Now you see the massing step backs, and we have a variety of programs, including a multi-purpose sports court, fitness, flexible programming, classrooms, and administration, rounding out at a double height for the multi-sport court, and then additional fitness and community and meeting spaces. And then we're showing this quickly in section, just to show that obviously we all understand this is a very urban condition and an urban YMCA, and we have a lot of program that we're stacking up across the site. And really, as we talk about the layout and the function and the applicability of the facade to the interior spaces, we wanted to provide this diagram for you all that kind of shows the double height aquatics stacked below the double height basketball court that has the running that bisects the space, so the interior track that bisects the space. You're seeing the floor lines in solid line, and then some ceiling lines associated with that. Double height lobby space with the child care at the third floor and fitness at the fourth floor as well. So as we now turn to a before and after, here would be the before condition as we saw last week. And what we're going to be showing you as an update is really a refinement, not an overhaul. We had, really considered a lot of different components, when we were addressing these updates. And really what we look to do, as we sought to refine this facade, was we reduce the overall window count. So there's fewer windows overall. This better balances out the facade. And we did introduce larger windows into the larger spaces of the basketball court and the aquatic center as well, so that we weren't concentrating some of the smaller windows in some of the larger spaces. We recognize that this isn't sort of a one-to-one interior space. One type of interior space gets one type of window, and you just sort of apply an outside in or an inside out approach that way. And part of that is due to the fact that we're block programmed at this point, but we also have some very large interior spaces that want to have a multitude of different openings. And we've got some interior views that we want to show to you all, so you can kind of understand how the responsiveness functions from the inside out. From the outside in, this facade in its refined form is really intended to respond to the character and the mission and the concept, behind the building. That's really about the idea of movement, which we've spoken to as one of the underlying concepts of both the massing and the facade. But really, this active and dynamic facade is really intended to evoke a sense of playfulness and fun that's inherent in this building. The material palette and the use of terracotta is directly intended to mark this building as a civic building that's part of the civic core along Highland Ave. But it's really important for this building to have its own identity that expresses transparency, playfulness, and movement, and really connects itself to the community, both not at the base, but also at other levels of the building. And so that's why we think by introducing some larger format windows and sort of reducing the overall number of windows for the building, consolidating them is most appropriate for this project. So we're going to take you on a little bit of an inside out tour here. And obviously there's no interior design here. It's all diagrammatic. It's all blocked here, but we're standing in the middle of the basketball court, maybe at the 3-point line, maybe at half court. We'd have to see about that. But what we wanted to show, with the variation of the windows on the outside as they're expressed on the inside, is we have some different conditions. Where having a variety of window openings that you're running across for the track makes a lot of sense. But at the basketball court itself, in kind of that overrun area, you don't want to have low windows at your baseline. We actually want to have pads across that space. So having some windows that are brought up higher in that space makes a lot of sense. But then we're trying to work that into an overall balance across the facade. Moving down into the aquatic center, here would be a gorgeous pool, 6-lane pool, updated in the foreground. But this really shows, and I think this is very exemplary of how the exterior massing and concept design expresses itself on the interior with some playful, multi-height clear story windows that are going to let light deep into the space, and then that's bisected by the action line swoop that we see across the facade that has that fritted glass that we discussed at length at the last commission, that allows for a level of light into the space, but a level of privacy as well, and that works in concert with the plantings behind it. As we move into the fitness and childcare components on the 4th and 5th floor, up at the fitness center at the 4th floor, we've got windows that are a little bit larger openings. They're a little bit more vertically oriented. And this is probably a program area where you're going to have most of your program close up to the glass. So having large format openings here makes a lot of sense, because there's going to be a lot of fitness program spread all across this floor line. And so this is probably a great chance, maybe our best chance, to have the interior program really be visible right up against the glass from the street line. Down here on the lower right, this would be at the 3rd floor, so above the lobby here in the childcare spaces. And what we want to provide at this level of development of the design is the ability for the childcare to have a multitude of spaces and uses and responses therein. And we really love the idea of windows that are sized for larger format classrooms, but also some smaller moments that respond directly to the scale of the childcare activities, and even some opportunities for blank facade as well, because we know that children, when they're using spaces, they sometimes like to have an area of protection or enclosure. So having a variety of window openings in this area of the facade makes a lot of sense to us. So here in sort of reviewing once again the overall balance of the facade, we understand kind of some of the comments and the feedback behind what was shown at the last time. What we really like about being able to both express the interior program to the exterior with these slightly larger format openings, and then also responding from the exterior, is that this update affords us a balance across the facade. The sort of the omnidirectional and playful nature of the facade allows for a facade layout that really complements rather than draws the eye away from this large massing move that really organizes the entire building and kind of builds from the ground up a strong base, middle, and top. And we did study, and had previously studied as well, more gridded or zoned window openings, where you might be bunching one window type specifically in one area and then switching to another window type, and vice versa. And a lot of what happens there, when you're not able to sort of playfully balance out the facade, is you end up with a lot of negative spaces that you're then dealing with. And a lot of those negative spaces, quite frankly, had a negative overall impact on the read of the overall facade. And so providing a level of playfulness and balance across the facade while responding to the interior program was really behind what was in this update. I will also note, Commissioner Arbol, we did study and look at pulling the color out of the building, and as we reviewed this kind of up and down the chain, both on the client side, at the board level, and everything, that was one of the first questions that we got was what happened to the color that really played into the playfulness of the building. So we really wanted to continue to show that because the team thought strongly about it. We do recognize that this is early on in the design. This doesn't necessarily need to be the final color selection. We may look at something that's a little less saturated, but the idea that these colorful elements accentuate the playfulness and the movement across the facade was something that had strong purchase. And then obviously, the idea of bringing this movement to the facade is really, we think, going to have a strong effect both day and night when you're seeing these interior program elements further reflected on the street as well as the dynamic nature of the facade. I think this view also kind of goes to show that it's worth noting that this building and the site is essentially at the top of the hill. It's Highland Avenue. There's not a lot of other tall buildings around this area, and so these spaces will be primarily viewed from the street. So there's going to be some uses in this building that will have, as we mentioned, like fitness, where you're going to have program closer to the windows, and you might see that fitness program directly. There's going to be some other areas like the basketball court, for example, where primarily you're going to be seeing the ceilings of the spaces, right? It's going to be a little bit different, kind of based on the ground level views. So we really like the idea of having moments where you've got the indoor track where people can be running directly across this facade, so that there can be a connection from the interior program to the exterior and to the community at large. Just moving quickly around the corner from a before and after, we have updated and consolidated these windows as they wrap around onto School Street. We did look at a little bit closer the idea. I think Commissioner Taylor, there was a question about the appropriateness of sort of bringing this terracotta all the way over and having it directly connect to the School Street facades. Pulling it back was a bit much for both the design and project team, because it sort of introduced yet another facade type that needed to happen in this area. But we did really like the idea and very much took to heart the idea of having a break and introducing a break here, because there's a break on Highland Avenue between the residential building and the Y Community Center. Really introducing a strong break here where we're also adjusting the cornice level of the School Street facade does a lot to sort of establish this as its own building and own character. And we think that does a lot to sort of help to mitigate the underlying massing associated with the facade. So those were welcome comments, and I think, we really think is an improvement to sort of a critical juncture part of this facade area. So we're just going to wrap up by taking a quick kind of memory lane. This was the facade composition as first presented. We updated at the second point. We looked at two different facade treatments at the top. There was a preference amongst the commission for what was shown, in the third here, and updated where we've got a calmer but still broken down window element across the top, and then that consolidated facade composition along the base of the building. All right, so I've done my best here for the commission to leave as much time as possible for feedback and commentary, so I will do so at that time. Open the floor.
Thanks, Louis.
Yeah, do we have any questions or comments from the commissioners?
Just one on the floor plans. Can you confirm where the transformers ended up?
Yes, I can. Residential building, back corner.
Oh, great.
Accessible off the end. Yes, we agree.
Anything else? All right, team, are we ready to make votes?
Well, a couple comments. I really appreciate the attention to detail and the thought that went into this presentation and really all the presentations that you've given. Um, and I appreciate the willingness, both of the design team and the YMCA, to pursue a design like this that I think is going to be unique. It's going to be dynamic, something that, and you mentioned tying the similarity in materiality and the reference to the civic block next door, similarity in materiality to the high school. I think the high school, it's a building that a lot of people in Somerville are proud of. That it's a really important civic building. And I hope this is something similar. A building that people that will be really functional for the people that use it, but also something that we as a city can really be proud of. Um,
Thank you.
We ready to go?
yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, and then we have 3 votes to take. We need a motion for a vote on the facade.
So motioned.
All right, we have a
Second.
motion from Andrew, seconded by, was that Martin? Sorry, my screen is limited. Seconded by Martin. Let's do a roll call vote. Andrew,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
and Deborah.
Hesitant, yes, but yes.
Okay. All right. So with 4 votes in favor, we have a preferred facade. I need a motion that the design guidelines have been met.
So motioned.
Motion by Andrew, second by Martin. Roll call vote. Seeing you guys in different order right now. Deborah,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
and Andrew.
Yes.
All right, with 4 votes in favor, we have the design guidelines, and the final vote is there any additional design guidance? And at this point, I did not really hear any, so I would like to clarify with the commission before we actually vote on that.
I've got a couple items. One is related to the ground floor, something that we talked about last time, variation across that glass facade. I think it's important to ensure adequate variation in the mullion width and the depth of the caps and everything to both achieve the design concept of movement, but also to achieve design guideline J, which speaks to the need for variation across the facade, especially important with this kind of uniform treatment of the ground floor. The second item is just the reveals, the vertical reveals of the building, which I know it's early in design and it's a rendering. I think the detailing of those will need to be thought through really carefully. They appear pretty strong in this rendering, and so I think careful detailing of those so they don't overwhelm kind of the bigger idea of this variation in windows. Window sizing will be important. The last item I wanted to bring up was just, and I appreciate the subtle refinement to the kind of intersecting volumes of that inside corner between the School Street piece and the Highland Ave piece. I actually think that intersection point is successful, as you've shown it. We've talked a lot about a preference for a 3-story volume over a 4-story volume facing out on Summer Street. I don't think it's this commission's role to, dictate that. But as part of the design guidelines, guidance, we could express a preference for a 3-story volume over a 4 facing out on Summer. So that's a question to the fellow commissioners.
I'm fine with that. I mean, it's not going to happen, but I'm fine with expressing the opinion that it would be better.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I'm fine with the height it is because of the program, and I think the program is really important. So, yeah, I mean, I think to find a way to maybe make it more different, that top level, but I think but I support the height.
And the inset is much better. I definitely agree with that too. That was a big improvement.
So it sounds like we're not all in agreement about a preference for a 3-story volume facing out on Summer Street. Given that, I'd be also fine leaving that out of our design guidance.
You mean on School Street?
Yes.
Okay.
Kind of defer to Deborah on that one. I think Deborah has the I defer. I could go either way.
Okay. All right. So hearing that we're not including that comment. So what I have, and please correct me, I know I didn't get the second one quite right. So the first additional guidance is that at the ground floor glass, there needs to be variation within the mullions and
Mullion width and depth.
mullion width and depth. Variation of mullion width and depth. Okay. To achieve the concept of movement and to better meet design guideline J.
Yes.
Okay. Then the second was to consider careful detailing of, and I wrote down notches, and I think, Tim, you had used a different word.
I think I said reveals, but
Reveals.
it could
Thank
be
you.
either way.
Okay. And that was to make sure that they're not too dominant to be overpowering the window pattern.
Yeah.
Okay. So with those two additional recommendations, we need a vote. I need a motion to add the additional design guidance.
So moved.
Moved by Martin, second by Andrew. Roll call vote. Andrew.
Yes.
Deborah.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
And Tim.
Yes.
All right. With that vote, thank you very much, YMCA team.
Thank you very much to the commission for all of your work on this. It's been a lot of meetings but it's a lot of projects. So it's going to be a good one. So thank you very much and stay tuned.
And thank you. This is an important project for the city. So
Yeah. Thank y'all.
Thanks all.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right. The remaining pieces on our agenda are other business. So I have a note on my cheat sheet that commission members please respond to the email about availability for 2026 meeting attendance.
Yeah, kind of like I totally will do the best, but I can't tell you if I'm going to be available at a meeting in October. In February, that's a little silly. So yes, but also no.
I think it's more about, sort of vacations and, just to
Yeah.
make sure that, sort of any big chunks of time, if somebody's going to Italy for a month.
Right.
I wish.
I figured that something would resonate with all of us,
Yeah.
so that's why I picked that one.
Yep.
The last piece that we were going to talk about was the in-person, the concept of in-person meetings. So as I mentioned earlier, there is some revisiting to all boards and commissions practices, sort of across the city. We PPZ are in a bit of a bind at the moment. So to make any changes in the near term is going to be difficult because we actually, quite frankly, don't have the staff. And we are still obligated to do hybrid public meetings. So we would need at least 3 people, if not 4, to do the meetings in person. We definitely understand and appreciate design review is a whole lot easier to do when you're all sitting around a table in person. So we are trying to move in that direction, but right now there's some hiccups that we are contending with. The other thing that when Lexi and I talked to Dan, sort of not knowing what the new administration wants to do about public meetings in general, we kind of need to wait and see what happens on that front as well. So I know that's not necessarily the news that you all wanted to hear that says, yeah, let's do it next meeting. But we do have it on our list of things to keep checking in on and revisiting. So, are there any questions?
I mean, it's a 5-year-old request. So
know.
I mean, I respect the new administration, but we had 4 years of an old administration and this never got moved on. So I have low belief that anyone's going to take this seriously. And it's really frustrating to sit here meeting after meeting and year after year, 6 years into this commission, and have the same request and be told, that we have the ability to write our own rules and do our own thing and blah blah blah. And the reality is, like, this has just been the most basic request we've ever had, is to at some point see each other in person, and that minimum threshold has not been met in 6 years. So it's incredibly frustrating. And I'm sorry, like, after 6 years, like, someone should have figured this out long time ago. So I'm not really hyper motivated to kind of sit and wait and just, like, come
Yeah.
on, you guys. Somebody has to actually hear that this is important and effing do it. Like, because I just don't believe it anymore. It's sorry, it's frustrating. We're not asking for much. We're not asking for, like, every meeting to be in person. We're asking for one in the 6-year history of this commission. And if we can get here every week, every 2 weeks and do this, it's just, we need you guys to do this. And we need this to be heard that it's a priority. And we need it on the agenda every week for an update, which is obnoxious to have to do. And I know it's obnoxious, but it does not get acted on. And it didn't get acted on for the last 2 mayors.
Right.
So, yeah. So I share a lot of Andrew's frustration. I think we would operate more effectively as a commission Certainly for certain of the more impactful reviews, but also just to have the opportunity to interact in person together. I would suggest as a way forward, maybe we use this time as a commission to discuss what our plan would be, presuming that we will have the ability to meet in person. So we can at least have that, put together. And so planning can have something specifically to work towards. And then I think we could also discuss whether there needs to be a communication from this commission to the administration and outlining, our 6-year request, noting that we haven't been able to meet in person, and noting that we would like to meet in person. Because it could impact, budget preparations for the upcoming year.
No, that's a very good point. One of the things I will say that we do have, so OSPCD moved to the Tufts Administration Building outside of Davis Square. Within that building, there is a large conference room in the called the atrium. So the idea that we do have an additional, and sort of we have to ask the university, sort of for permission to use it, but there are very few, as I've observed, very few evening meetings in there. And so I think we might be limited on how late we can go, because it is a Tufts building, but we do at least, we're not contending with the demands that are on chambers for public meetings. So we do have a location, which was one of the challenges that we were dealing with before, because we lost a lot of our public meeting spaces with COVID. So for example, like the Visiting Nurses Association, we used to use all the time, that got shut down. Sort of some of the schools are difficult to use after hours. But knowing OSPCD is in this location now, and it is a large conference space, I think that gives us some potential too.
So what would people, optimally, what would our in-person meeting schedule look like?
Seems like quarterly or something like that makes sense. Obviously not every 2 weeks, but with some regularity I wonder if it would, in terms of scheduling, like what's reviewed. If there's, I guess that's the thing, is if there's more impactful projects like the YMCA one, where it would definitely help, like if rather than, I wonder, now I'm almost backtracking, like if there's, whether it's project based or whether it's a sort of time division. I think those are like the two ways to look at it. And I'm undecided because I've just thought about it for 30 seconds. What would be better?
And I had the same thought, as sometimes I get really frustrated about materials that are being proposed
sure.
on
Yeah.
screen, or, especially for the larger projects. If I guess the tough thing is people want to be reviewed when they're ready to be reviewed, and they want to be reviewed quickly.
Right.
So nobody wants to wait a month, or 2 months to come to the special in-person meeting. But I don't know if the planning can steer people, if we do have a quarterly schedule. And maybe we try to bracket it so it doesn't happen in the winter, in the middle of the winter, so, yeah, but
yeah.
It would be a lot.
Log for me, so it's great.
Yeah. It would be a lot easier to discuss procedural issues too in person.
Oh,
So
for sure.
if there are things that are coming up that are related to the work and the commission itself, things like tonight's presentation and a discussion, something like that would have been great to have done in person.
Yeah. Yep.
So one of the things we could do is set criteria for which projects get reviewed in person, and then also set, goal. If we haven't seen a project like that in 3 or 4 months, then we would just schedule an in-person meeting, so we're meeting quarterly, in person. One of the ways to think about it could be just the largest projects, that if there's an HR district, high-rise district project, or even an MR5, MR6 project over a certain scale, that we'd meet in person to review it.
And don't forget, just as a reminder, that with the revision that we're looking at now, master plan special permits will be coming online as well. So
What was that? What was that, Sarah?
the one of the things that we're trying to get is to make sure that you guys review the master plan special permits, because those are because those are urban realm. And
I think those are those I feel like really important ones to do in person.
Yeah, I think especially because, yes, absolutely, for the master plan special permits. The high-rise districts are the buildings where we are evaluating massing options. Like, one of the things that I will send in an email for suggested revision would be that for the biggest projects, we view physical models of them for the massing options, which would be great to see in person.
I know in
Got a
most
point, Lisa.
cases, right, we get I will make note of that. I'm going to put a pin in that only because I think at some point in time, the regulations got changed that digital models were acceptable. But let me follow up on that one specifically, because that might only be assembly, to be honest with you.
I feel like the ones that have the most impact on the public realm, that's our charge, right? And so I'm trying to figure out, so it isn't necessarily the tallest, it's the ones in sensitive, sightings, that in neighborhoods, or special areas that get a lot of public, they affect a larger amount of the public.
Like the
So
Davis one,
anyway,
if that comes
that's
back to
another
us,
way of looking at it.
Yeah, I like that.
What did you say, Andrew? I'm sorry.
like the Davis one, I think that one, I
Oh
feel
my
like I
gosh,
keep hearing
yes.
about that. When that one comes back, that's one that you would think it would be a lot easier to talk about in person.
Yeah. We would need a big room for the community, though.
Or a big door to keep them out. All right, not the spirit. I'll get fired from my volunteer gig.
Yeah, but I feel like there were a lot of lab projects that were in very insensitive areas, and those feel like they feel like they have the biggest impact. With their penthouses, shadowing things, and the way they hit the ground related to neighbors.
Yeah, I mean the Y would have been an excellent example
Oh,
for
boy,
an
yeah.
in-person.
Yeah.
That it?
All right, so let's see we will make some, sort of make sure we've got these notes will be in the meeting minutes. So we'll be able to refer back to them and then refine further as we find out more and figure out sort of define what the criteria are for these meetings. And it might be, I'm going to make the recommendation, it might be easiest if we sort of, once we figure out, sort of what what we're capable of, what the, sort of both the staffing capacity is and what the technical requirements may be. At least set something, start at the calendar, sort of the quarterly idea, and then we can see what comes up and then maybe refine and move on the fly. So as long as we've got, sort of meeting the open meeting law and posting of agendas, we should be covered on that front. But I do feel like there's some technicality stuff that we have to work out for the capacity issue right now.
How about we target March 24th as our first in-person meeting?
We're not going to have enough staff on board by then. We're hoping to be to have at least 2 senior planners, maybe a deputy director, sort of by the end of March. But let us see what we can do. We're interviewing like crazy to fill our voids. We're down 4 right now.
Okay. Well, I think it's not. I said target.
Yeah.
Be prescriptive.
Yeah.
They're the way we could go through schematic design for a whole building by March 24th. Hopefully we can figure out how to get the room set up.
So, yeah, absolutely. But we are local government.
Yep. Yeah. Does that make sense to everyone if we were to target March 24th? And I think we talked about other criteria, if there really is a project that's significantly impactful to the public realm, master plan, special permit, or high-rise district project.
Let Lexi and I see what we can find out, and at least sort of by March 24th, we've got plenty of time to sort of try to get answers and see if we can work out the staffing.
Okay. Is the staffing issue just running the Zoom concurrently with kind of chairing and running the meeting?
And the hybrid equipment. So we will need to make sure that we can acquire and have people to run the hybrid equipment, because that takes another person.
And that's because we just don't have rooms as a city set up for. I mean, maybe I just take it for granted that like every conference room is set up to do this these days.
The chambers is the only one. So, and we've done plenty of public meetings. We have a hybrid packet, but it does take sort of 1 or 2 extra people to make sure that we can.
This is a dumb question, but like we don't take public comment. Like, why do we need to be on Zoom, or couldn't we just be on Somerville public television? Like, wouldn't that still be, our meeting would be broadcast and the public would have the same amount of capacity to see it as they can on a Zoom?
Using the boards and commissions, other than the council, don't use the television, which is sort of why we have to use the Zoom equipment. But just because everything has been done remote, the feeling is going back to in-person only is not something that we want to do, because we've gotten better participation. So doing both is sort of the way to move forward. And literally it's just having people to operate the equipment. All right, so we will leave this as an item on the other business on the agenda. And then we'll do some do some homework and then update you at the next meeting as to what we find out, and pushing for March 24th as a possible in-person meeting date.
Awesome.
So, okay, if there is no more discussion, can someone make a motion to close this meeting of the Urban Design Commission?
Sarah, I got one more question for you. Is there,
Absolutely.
it was mentioned earlier on with Office of Sustainability, they're looking at kind of policies and procedures and potential, zoning related changes to better accomplish their goals. Is there discussion of, or is there already plans for any kind of broader reconsideration of, or evaluation of our current zoning and how well it's working?
Yeah, that is the 5-year look back project that I did briefly mention. I don't have the link handy to share it with you guys, but on Summer Voice, there is a project that we will be updating that page. So if you want to take a look at that page for the 5-year zoning look back, that is very, very broad brushed, and sort of has a series of priorities associated with it, because there are a lot of things that we want to upgrade and change, sort of as we've learned. So take a look at that page, and then that's something that we can keep you updated on, because for the feedback and comment, as a commission to sort of weigh in, we can definitely do that.
You said Summer Voice, right?
So yeah, SOMER, of course, voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's where all the ongoing projects tend to be listed there, whether they're mobility or PSAF or us, and even economic development. So anything that is sort of an ongoing project or program, you can usually find information on that page.
Yeah. I think it would be interesting for this commission to look back at what we've reviewed over the past, years, and kind of see kind of what's working and where we've seen challenges. And I think even with the YMCA project, I know there were a number of things that were brought up over the meetings. And, a lot of times the answer was, well, zoning's saying we have to do this, or zoning's we're doing this to meet a zoning requirement. So
Yeah.
I think highlighting those, and
that building could have a much more generous plaza in front of its entry.
Absolutely.
Zoning won't let it go more than 2 feet back or whatever silly rule is.
Yeah, the same thing with the upper stories not being able to, shape the corners or respond to the track or anything like that.
Yeah.
I can also send the new PPZ newsletter, Amy's link. You guys can sign up for it if you want. And then in my next email to you, I'll add that so you can sign up to get the emails from our new newsletter.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good call, Lexi.
I'm ready for a motion to adjourn.
All right, I hear a motion. All right, motion by Tim, seconded by Deborah. Roll call vote. Andrew.
Yes.
Deborah.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
And Tim.
Yes.
All right, so at 7:39, this meeting of the Urban Design Commission is now adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
Thanks.
all.
Bye-bye.
Good
Bye.
night.